The 417 Gamers is a group of board, tabletop, and card gamers in the 417 area code. This is the podcast. Welcome to the 417 Gamer Podcast, Episode 11, Expansion. In the 4, Andrea and I talk about 4 games we enjoyed from the month of July. For the one topic of the week, Andrea and I do another review. We are reviewing Planet Unknown. And in the 7, Ben from Moon City Con and 417 Gamers, he stops by and we talk about another 7 games we love to teach. Let's get on with the 417 Gamer Podcast. Welcome to the 417 Gamer Podcast, Episode 11, Expansion.
Dun, dun, dun.
My name is Rick.
I'm Andrea.
And the 4 and the 417 Gamers, on the regular episode, we talk about 4 things we enjoyed or look forward to. However, on the expansion, we take a look back at the previous month and talk about 4 games we enjoyed this time from the month of July. Mm-hmm. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'll go first.
All right. What did you like from July?
Well, first of all, I like that my choices are heavier games.
Yeah, they are.
That I am starting to not just understand the heavier Euros, but actually enjoy them.
Yeah.
And want to play them again just as soon as we're done. Because I'm like, okay, now I got it. Let's go again.
Chicken leg! Sorry, the kitty has her chicken leg up looking at her butt.
So my 2 games that I enjoyed are, they're not, she's also got the live long and prosper symbol going on with her Pete's. I'm sorry, we got distracted. So my 2 games are a little bit heavier. They're not new games. They were new to me games.
So pick one of them.
Lorenzo el Magnifico.
Yeah.
And if you play it, you have to say it like that.
Lorenzo el Magnifico.
Woo! Yes, you must say it like that. And the video that we watched on how to play it, that's how he said it too. And I'm like, that's how I say it. Okay, so it is a dry Euro. It is, oh my gosh, help me out here. You're drawing cards.
So in the spirit, it's kind of a worker placement because you have 4 workers. Mm-hmm. 3 of them are your family members, and they're color-coded. You have a meeple in orange, black, and white. You have 3 dice that are rolled on the board. When you roll those dice, that's the power of those meeples. Anywhere from a 1 to a 6.
Yes.
Then you have a natural colored cylinder or whatever.
Which is like wild.
He's a friend of the family, but inherently he's worth nothing. You have, on the board, you have 4 towers where you can put out workers to go get things. Mm-hmm. The green towers where you can get territories. The blue towers where you can hire people. The yellow towers where you can get buildings into your little area. And the purple building has to do with prayers and whatever, but there's a different name for it, and I forget what it's called. But they're all development cards. Right. You can put one of your family members in the tower. If you're the first one there, you just have to pay the cost on the card. If you play, depending on where you play in the tower, is how strong of a family member you need.
Right, and that corresponds to those dice rolls, like you said. So if they're 1 to 7, actually, and the dice only go 1, they're regular dice, so they're 1 to 6. So if you want that 7th level, what you can do is you have little extra workers. Servants that you can add to your family member to make it worth a 7. Which, if you roll a 6, you have to add 1. But if you really want it, and that color dice is only worth a 3, that's going to take a lot of servants. You can do it if you have the resources to do it. So we played this twice with 2 players. Mm-hmm. Once was just kind of a learning game, and we're like, we're not sure if we're playing this right. And then we watched a video, and we played it again at 2-player. The problem with playing it as 2-player is that there are a lot of areas of the board that get covered up. That open up at 3 and above. And it's hard to get resources at just 2 players because there's just 2 spots to do it. It is also hard to, it's hard to do any action, especially if you keep consistently rolling lower level dice rolls.
Right.
Now, what we found was when we played it with 3, when we had a family member, not only does it open up those other spaces to put your workers to gain resources, but you also get leader of the family cards. Now, these cards, you can start with 4 cards, and you can, as soon as you have enough resources to activate them, you don't have to pay the resources, so you just have to be in possession of the resources. Like 6 wood or 2 of every color card. You can then lay down this leader card without, you don't have to give up the wood or the cards. And that gives you special abilities. Like my first leader card that I put down was every color dice from me from now on was worth at least a 5, which was fantastic to put down at the beginning of the game, because that opened up so much more ability for me to get cards from every level of the game.
But he was an expensive leader to get to.
He was, but it changed my focus of the game. And my gameplay, but once I was able to get that card out, I think you were a little jealous that I could get 5 level cards every time.
The very next round when we rolled dice, there was a 1, a 2, and a 4.
Yeah.
And the 4 was the best one going that round, and you had 5s. And I was like, that's crap.
So if you're gonna pick up this game, it's not we don't recommend it for 2 players. It's okay, but not great.
Right.
3 and above, we really liked it, or I did anyway. I'd play it again right now. The only drawback to the game is you have the Pope comes to town every other turn, and you have to have acquired enough prayer points to show your reverence to the Pope. Now you'll get points for the actual counting points for your final score, but those reset every time, so you have to get your prayer points again, make sure you have those, otherwise you have to suffer a penalty, which is you don't get bonuses from certain cards, or at the very end of the game, for every 5 points you've accumulated, you lose 1. So it is in your best interest to make sure your prayer points are satisfied. You don't have to, but I recommend it. So I felt like that was kind of a distraction, because I'd be really good on getting my points, and I was like, oh, I forgot I have to get those prayer points to this certain level for this round. But that's part of any game. You have different things that you need to make sure you have in all the categories. But I liked it, and I enjoyed it, and I'm glad we played it.
Yeah.
And it was on your unplayed shelf.
It was on our unplayed shelf. Lorenzo Il Magnifico is published by Simon Games, and it is designed... It's got 3 designers on it. Flaminia Brazzini, Virginio Gili, and Simone Luciani. And I probably butchered those, but that's my best try. A game I really enjoyed is Archeo Society. Same night we played Lorenzo Il Magnifico, brought over...
Lorenzo Il Magnifico!
Ethan brought over Archeo Society. This is designed by Paolo Mori. It is the retheming of Ethnos. In Ethnos, you had an island. There was some area control. You put your little pieces out there, but it was all card-driven. Mm-hmm. You had merfolk, you had halflings, skeletons, minotaurs. You grouped them together in bands, war bands, to go out there, and they either had to be all of the same race, or they had to be all of the same color card. Yeah. Archeo Societies, you're going on archaeological expeditions. Mm-hmm. Same thing, but they've changed these to different characters. So you have a student, a cartographer, a
physician.
Yup.
A photographer,
a mercenary.
Mm-hmm,
they all do the same exact function that Ethnos did, but they've changed the art, they've changed the theme. Now, instead of a static board with the point tokens being shuffled out there each time, you now have 3 static boards, one for each of the regions that you were trying to conquer in Ethnos. Mm-hmm. Now there are different boards you put out. There's a pink board, a black board, blue, green, brown, and white. You put a marker on each one of those. You start at 0, and then when you do your warbands, to whatever color was your leader, you get to move up on that track. Each of the boards tell you how many cards you need at least to move up to the next track. In general, you're getting points, although there were a couple different boards we played with the advanced side that gave you bonus or penalties. The blackboard we played, each time you moved up, after in your turn, you got to draw some more cards.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time you moved up, you got to draw 1 card. The second time you moved up, you got to draw 2, and then 3, and then 4. So that was nice. The purple board was kind of weird on how the points worked out. The first time you moved up, it was 2 points against you. And then the next time you moved up, 2 points for you, and then 0, and then 4.
Yeah.
So the odd spaces were not as good as the even spaces. At the end of each round, you get to move around the scoring track, and then we also had the archaeologists there, and they're writing papers is their theme. So that they do the same thing that the merfolk do. They have a separate board that each time you use an archaeologist, you depending on how big of a troop you led, is how far you got to move. And there were little action points that would give you a free move up on any of the boards.
Yeah, that
which
was
was
nice.
really nice. The scientist allowed you to keep cards whenever you play a try or a band of people to go on your archaeology little expedition.
Your team.
You play what you can, and you'll get points at the end of the round. Whatever you have not played gets put into the market for anybody to grab and draft.
Right.
The scientists allow you to keep a number of cards equal to however big the little team was.
Mm-hmm.
You had a linguist that allowed you to play 2 rounds or 2 different bands. The students could not count towards your overall total on the dig, but they did count for you for points of how big your dig team was. Mm-hmm. Mercenaries did the opposite. Yeah. They could help you get further on the actual dig, mm-hmm. but once it was time for you to get your inspiration points or the victory points, the mercenaries left because they were just there to help you. They wanted money and they were gone.
And then the photographers, you got extra points because your dig has
some pictures with it.
Yeah, everybody wants pictures.
Everybody likes a story, but pictures? You got pictures. But very happy that Ethan brought this. We still have Ethnos. I'm happy that I have Ethnos. But if you don't have Ethnos, Archeo Society is pretty good. Mm-hmm. Andrea, another one you enjoyed from July.
Red Cathedral. This was one, I guess I didn't... We played it for the first time at Ethan's house, didn't we?
A long time ago.
And I remembered that I liked it. And it was on our unplayed shelf, and because we were playing games every day of this month, I was like, I remember I liked this one. So I pulled it out, and we played it 2-player. It's not fantastic at 2 players, but it was still good. It wasn't. I liked it more at 2 players than I liked Lorenzo El Magnifico at 2 players.
Sure.
It is.
But
I don't know.
3 and 4.
That's where the sweet spot.
I think so.
Really is, because you're going up on. You're building these cathedrals, obviously, and as you choose either the foundation of the cathedral, the middle spot, or the very top spire, other people can put their pieces on a building that you're already working on, and they can. Once you get a piece built, you have to hurry up and claim that piece, otherwise someone else can put their piece on it, like either their door or their window. So it is very much take what I'm going to say hate drafting, but you can absolutely play a part in it.
I think that's how you played it, but I don't think you're supposed to. So, in the game, you're building the Red Cathedrals in Russia. And like Andrea said, you claim different spots of the cathedral that you're wanting to build. Mm-hmm. And once you build it, if you don't adorn it or decorate your spot, somebody else could decorate it for you. Mm-hmm. So, and then each tower that you're building in the Red Cathedral, at the end of the game, gets points. It gets 2 points for each completed section, and then it gets a point for every adornment, a decoration that's in that tower.
Right.
Whoever has played the most on that tower will get full points. Whoever played second most gets half. Whoever played third gets quarter. The action board is my favorite thing. it's kind of a rondel, but kind of not. It's a round circle where you have your resources. So you're looking for stone, brick, wood, gold, purple gems, green gems, money, and prayer points. I think that's all of them. But how you take an action is you look wherever... There are 5 action dice. Red, blue, green, yellow, white. You look at the die value, and it can hop forward around the circle of resources equal to how many pips are on the die. Now, everybody has a player color, and that attunes you to one of the die colors. You can spend more money to move your die even further around the circle to get to the spot you want. Yeah, kitty. And wherever you are, whenever your die lands, you take that resource. But you get resources equal to how many dice are there. So if you're the first die in that spot, you get that resource once. So it's 2 pieces of wood. But if you're the second die there, you get 4 pieces of wood instead. Then there's also I forget what they call them. They're like nobles, but not quite. There's a card in every sector that corresponds to 2 of the resource spots. When you're in there, you can get your resources, activate the personality, and then as you're claiming spots on the cathedral, you have little squares that you can pay to put on your player board, that each time you activate a die, you also activate that power. So towards middle and into the game, whenever you're taking a die to get resource action, you're doing 3 things. You're getting resources, you're activating a card, and you're activating the die power. And it's a rewarding thing. It's very fun. Yeah. And then it's one of those games, when the game ends, you're like, what? I still had some stuff to do. Yeah. But the cathedral's basically pretty darn close to being built. Yep. Somebody's built their 6th cathedral piece. Game's over. But I thoroughly enjoy this. I'm glad Ethan taught us and then re-taught us. We went to our brand new game cafe, Meeple Village, or Village Meeple. And we were absolutely happy to go out there and play that. Made sure Ethan taught Jess Fantasy Realms. She really liked that.
She did.
So, but no, Red Cathedral, I know that was your game. I spoke about it a little bit there, sorry.
I think you liked it too.
I love Red Cathedral. It's a small box. It's a box about the size of the small Ticket to Rides, maybe a little bit deeper. Yeah. And there's so much gameplay packed into that small box. And I know they have an expansion, but I don't know that I want the expansion because I really like what's in the box already. Yeah. Maybe after 10, 15 more plays, I might want an expansion just to refreshen it, but I'm happy with the gameplay where it's at. Yeah. So, I think my other game I enjoyed in July, I could just piggyback off of yours, Red Cathedral, but I'm going to say Kingdom Builder. I haven't pulled Kingdom Builder off the shelf in a while, but your brother had come over, and we were finding some lighter games, and we were going through quite a few. We had played, like, Roll For It, and we'd played No Thanks, and a lot of light stuff. I'm like, how about something a little more teeth? Oh, we played Marvel Splendor as well. Yeah. But he was still up to play. So, like, all right, something just a little more. Or about the same weight as Splendor. And I was actually looking for Alhambra, and I couldn't find it. But it was another Yellow Box Queen game, King Domino sitting there. This is designed by Donald X. Vaccarino. He's better known for Dominion, which is the premier deck building game. If you ever get into deck building games, that's the game a lot of people either start with, or it's one of their first 3 to 5 deck building games, and they fall in love. They get all the expansions if they love the game, or they don't touch deck building again if they hate the game. But instead, Kingdom Builder is a dry Euro. It won the Spiel des Jahres. On your turn, you take a terrain card, and it tells you what terrain you can place 3 buildings in. There are deserts, grasslands, forests, flower fields, and canyons. There are 2 more regions. There are mountains and waterlands, but you cannot just place pieces there. Then, when you start the game, there are 8 possible boards. You pick 4 at random, put them together to make your game board. Each of the 4 game boards will have special power tiles that will be put out there. Those are the potential power tiles that people could pick up to play throughout the game. Some might be able to move your building onto water. Some might be able to move your buildings in a straight line a couple spaces. Mm-hmm. Some might be able to pick up or put a brand new building on one of the edge spaces of the board. Some might let you play a 4th building into whatever region you drew, which is nice. But scoring-wise is all due to 3 cards that you'll pull out. Those are the character cards, and they tell you how they want to build. Mm-hmm. Like the Explorer, he's going to give you a point for each row that you have a house on. Because he wants you to explore as much as the board as you can. The Builder, you get points for every castle and specialty building that you've built around. Mm-hmm. The Farmer gives you points based on your smallest board that you're on, because there are 4 different boards. Whatever board you've developed the least on, you get 3 points for all the houses on that board. There's 10 of these cards. You're only going to play 3 of them. Mm-hmm. There's 8 boards. You're only going to play 4 of them. Yeah. So whatever game you played is not going to be the same that you play the next game. Right. It plays well. It plays so well that not only did we play with your brother, we played it a couple nights later with some other friends. They're lighter gamers. They've come in, play games with us at 417Gamers. Yeah. Or the meta games with the 417Gamers for Thursday game night. And on the used shelf was a copy of Kingdom Builder with the expansion, and that immediately got snatched up. Yep. We played the game. They were all like, "Oh, this is really good.
That was good." And then they went and bought it.
Yep. So, that is the 4 games that we have enjoyed from July. Mm-hmm. For the one, we're going to do a review. What game are we going to review, Andrea?
Planet Unknown.
Nice. So let's get on to the one in the 417Gamer podcast. So with the 417Gamer podcast, the expansions on the ones, we're starting to do some more reviews. Mm-hmm. Last month we did Namalia. We really liked that game.
Yes.
This month, what are we reviewing, Miss Andrea?
Planet Unknown.
Planet Unknown is designed by Ryan Lambert, Adam Rayberg. It is published by Adam's Apple Games. Mm-hmm. This is one of the, not Kickstarter, but Game Found. We played this at a friend's house for his birthday last year.
Yes, and you were very enamored with it right off the bat.
Yep, I kind of demanded our friendly local game store bring in the retail edition. Mm-hmm. I bought my copy, and they sold out immediately.
Yes.
And this is such a good game. Everybody sold out, so they did another Game Found this summer, and the earlies are gone. I think as of us talking, the Game Found's already done. But I think there might be some late pledge things happening, so go on the internets, find either Adam's Apple Games or just search Planet Unknown. Mm-hmm. There's different editions. There's the all-in deluxe, which I think was around $130 plus shipping. Yeah. If you have the base game, they had some just where you could upgrade yours to what the Kickstarter was, or you could just get the New Moon, the Super Moon expansion if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. You could get the the Game Found stretch goals, which was a couple added boards, and I think a corporation or 2 that didn't come in the base box. But so in Planet Unknown, players take kind of a corporation to go off to a new planet that is unknown. Oh, hey! This plays 1 to 6. Mm-hmm. And on a particular player's turn, as the active player, there is a Lazy Susan with polyomino pieces. There are 2 wells. The player spins it around until they find out which section they want to pull a piece from. Mm-hmm. And then everybody else, it dictates where they get to pull from.
It's a little spin the bottle.
It is, a little bit. And then from there, everybody takes their piece and places it on their planet. And their planet is divided up into grid squares. Mm-hmm. You have to start at an edge piece of the board, and then you play. Each of the pieces has 2 pieces of art Black is civilization, gray is technology, red is rover movement, blue is water, green is greeneries and terraforming, and gold is energy. Each time you put the tile on there, the two arts move up your tracks on the board.
Yeah.
Now, there's no gold space. What gold does is it can mimic whatever it touches. So you can either double up on the other art that's already on the tile, or if you can place that tile so the gold touches another color on the board, you can do that instead.
It's like a wild that you can double whatever it's touching.
Yep. It's really, really nice. So you keep on going until one of the wells have been depleted.
You actually have two boards.
Right.
You have your board that has your planet on it, that you're using your Tetris type pieces to cover.
Yep.
And then you have a second board, which is a tech tree, basically. And you have cubes that you're moving up. And the way that you move up the tech tree is by using the spaces on your pieces. If you put down, water spaces, you move up the tech tree in the water. So you might pick a piece depending on what fits best on your board, or you might choose a piece depending on what part of the tech tree you need to move up to make it to the next level.
Right.
So there's two ways or the third way to decide which piece you take is which piece does or does not have meteors on it.
Yes, because every time you put a piece down that has a meteorite, it goes down automatically on that piece.
Yes. And then what the meteors do is you have little rover cars. And I will say that the little plastic rovers are little cars, and they're kind of fun to drive around your planet. They're not just a little flat piece of cardboard. They're actually little rovers, and they're pretty fun. But the reason that you need to, if you can, try and pick pieces that don't have meteorites is much like a game like Patchwork, where you score all the covered pieces, all the covered spaces get you points. The same thing in this game. Every covered row, every full covered row and column will get you points. However, if there is a meteorite in there that you haven't picked up with the rover, you don't get to count that row or column. So I very hard try and choose pieces that don't have meteors on them so I can count the rows and columns. However, you might not have a choice, because if someone spins the Lazy Susan of pieces and the two pieces you have to choose from both have meteorites, you're stuck getting one.
Yeah.
So it's where do you put it that's closest to the rover, because you can drive your little rover over and pick up the meteorite, and then that frees up that row to then be counted as points.
Now, meteorites aren't all bad, because at the end of the game, for every 3 meteorites you picked up, that's a point. It's not the most efficient way to get points at the start, but through your civilization cards, as you go up on those tracks, you could acquire cards that would make those meteorites more lucrative, depending on... And that might change your strategy a little bit. If you're just getting nothing but meteorites to start, man, do I really want to go pick these up? They're only worth 1 for every 3, but you start getting some cards. Now they're 1 for 1, and now it's worth 4 points for every 3. They're a lot nicer towards the end of the game if you can pull the right cards.
Or your planet board is double-sided. Everyone can start with the same basic board, or if you flip your board over, there's an advanced version.
Yes.
I do not recommend people who've never played this before to start off with the advanced version. Please start with the base game until you understand. But once you do, which we did, flipped it over to the more advanced version, and my particular planet, I had extra rovers and extra movement for my rovers, and it became a lot more lucrative for me to pick up those, and a lot easier for me to pick up those meteorites, because in the base game you start with 1 rover, and then about halfway through the game you get a second, and that's it. Makes it a lot harder to drive around your planet, especially since you can only go 2, maybe 3 spots at a time. However, if you happen to draw, like I did, the planet that allows you to have extra rover movement and extra rovers, that makes it a lot easier to drive around. And then I didn't care so much. I actually picked up a lot of pieces that had meteorites on them on purpose.
And that was tied to your corporation.
It was.
Your planet gives you all of your obstacles.
Yes.
Like we had one player, he had a lava flow down the middle of the planet, and he drew a corporation where I think he was only ever going to get one rover. However, his technology, either the first or second level, gave him a teleport ability. Mm-hmm. And I think it was from either like energy port to energy port or something like something along those lines. There was a specific art on tiles he could teleport to whenever he activated a thing. Mm-hmm. So you're like, man, he's only going to get one. That's terrible. But
with the teleportation,
yeah, he was able to start moving around pretty good.
Yeah.
I love this game. This was so fantastic. I'm glad that Ben in our group backed it. I'm glad that we went to his birthday party. Well, and not only that, you got to pet Diego, which ended up us getting a dog, Buck.
Right.
We
total side story.
A senior doggo. We got to keep him for his last 10 months or so.
Yeah.
You know, pampered him all we could. Mm-hmm. And then, tough to say goodbye, but glad we had him.
Yeah.
Planet Unknown is, I went on the miniature market, the regular price is $79.
Yes. Which might sound like a lot, but there is a lot of value to this game, besides it just being a good game.
Yeah.
The components are, like I said, the little rovers are good.
Which we'll get into that here in a second.
Okay, good. Let's do it.
How we grade these games, we do on a 1 to 5 scale. We go through presentation, and that is how it looks on your shelf and how it looks on the tail. How does this game sell itself? Components, how you just alluded to. How nice are the components? Do they make you want to play the game and pick up and put everything around? Gameplay. How intuitive is the gameplay? Is it easy to teach? Is it easy to learn? Theme. Does the theme marry well with all the things you're doing? And then finally, it factor. It factor is how much do you really want to play the game right now. For our total score in the game, we add that up, multiply by 4, and you get your school grade score.
Yeah, A, B, C, D.
Yep, 60, 70, 80, 90, A, B, C, D. But, so we look at presentation. Planet Unknown. The box, you kind of see a planet, and you see these little spaceships coming through, meteorites kind of thumbing down, or kind of hurling down to the ground. You see a space station up above. It's a generic sci-fi themed box.
Yes.
It's nice, but it's nothing to write home about.
I mean, I might be interested and I might pick it up and look at it, but I'm not going to rush over and be like, what is this?
But its table presentation is where it seems.
Yes. As soon as you open that box and you pull it out and you start setting it up, everyone who walks by is like, oh, what are you playing?
Yes. It is what Scythe was about. How old is Scythe? 2015, 2016? It's, 7 or 8 years old. Mm-hmm. It is the table presence of what Scythe had. When Scythe came out with all the minis and all the worker and all that stuff, everybody's player board, like, wow, what are you playing?
Yeah.
That is what Planet Unknown is right now on the table.
Yeah. If it had mechs, it would be perfect.
Well, and if you get the All Deluxe, your life pods that you have to pick up are plastic rendered, nice little pods that have little legs. Your meteorites are craters, but the retail version is still nice. This little wooden pieces, and the rovers are the same either way.
Yes.
So presentation, I'm going to give this a 4. If the box sang to me more, I would give it higher.
Yeah.
But the table presence is really what sells this game. So I'm at just a solid 4. Where are you at?
I'd give it a 4.25.
Okay.
It definitely has drawn people over to us.
Yep. Components. The components, you have chunky cardboard tiles that are in the Lazy Susan. You have a Lazy Susan for games. We've talked about this quite a few times where it'd be nice to have a Lazy Susan to put a game board on and spin it around as needed. We've even talked about putting, you got, what was it, Chef's, what's the
Pampered Chef.
Pampered Chef. Pampered Chef makes a wooden Lazy Susan that's got these little wood handles. We've talked about taking the handles off, putting a board on it, and so we could have a rotating game board. but they did this with the polyomino tiles. I'm like, that was my idea. That was a great idea because it was my idea. But they used it in a different way. It works fantastic. You have double-layered player boards for your corporations. The only thing is the planet maps are a little bit thin, but I'm actually fine with that because later expansions, all I care about is more planets. I don't care about any more corporations because I think there's enough for me.
Yes.
But the planets, I would love to see more planets.
Right.
Even if you brought in some kind of fantasy TV show planets.
Oh, yeah.
Not quite Hoth, not quite...
Vulcan or any type of alien planet. Yeah.
Yeah, Sulkin.
Yeah.
Sloth. What do you think about the components?
Solid. The only thing I wish that it had that it doesn't, in Azul that it's got that plastic overlay board or
expansion.
Or Terraforming Mars on Etsy. We bought those overlay boards because your tech tree is just cubes and you're moving up the flat board, and it is very easy to bump that board and your cubes get shifted off the spot that they're on. But I think if it had, is it double layered?
Yep.
Where it holds the cubes in?
The only thing that's not is the map where you put your pieces. If you bump that map at all, your tiles. Yeah. But that's the same thing with patchwork. That's the same way with Feast for Odin. If you bump your player board, your polyomino tiles could askew. Yeah. Components on this one, it's $79, but I think you are getting what you pay for. Sure. It's a 4.5 for me on the retail edition because that's what we're going by. That's what we have.
Yeah, I give it a 4.0. If it was now the deluxe version, that you're talking about, that is now available to be backed, that would, I'm sure I would give like a 4.5 or 0.75. But yeah, the only thing with ours, the base game, the Spinning Center Lazy Susan does not come with a lid. And when you take it out of the box, if you haven't been super careful, they all get shifted.
They do.
But the deluxe expansion comes with a lid to hold pieces in place. So
the game needs... Okay, so you talked me down to a 4.25.
I didn't mean to.
Because traveling with this sucker...
Yes.
Not everybody, but quite a few people have had to come up with their own traveling solutions or storage solutions. This is not a game you can store vertically, and a lot of people like storing their games vertically to minimize damage on boxes rubbing up against one another. Or if you stack horizontally, you have to take them one by one so you don't damage them and then pull out the game. Yeah. Some people just kind of hold one and pull real quick and hope for the best. But this one does not travel very well because it does not have a lid. But then some people have used shower caps. Some people have used foil over the top of theirs. So I will back this off to a 4.25. You're at a 4. That brings us into gameplay. The gameplay is take a tile, put it on your board, move up your tech tracks. It is pretty easy to teach. It is pretty easy to play. I think the rule book was pretty easy to find stuff. Hey, we have a little question. All right, flip, found it. Gameplay-wise, I'm putting this at a 4.5.
I'll give it a 4.25. It is easy to teach new people. It is the tech tree. The first time I played was a little confusing for me. Although I think you caught on very quickly. Yeah. And understood absolutely what the bonuses were for moving up the tech tree. But you've played a lot more games than I have that have those kind of trees. Sure. So.
I love tech tracks, tech trees in games. That's why I love Beyond the Sun so much. And you're warming up to Beyond the Sun, but it's definitely not one of your favorites. Sure. So we get to theme. Theme is your Tabian Incorporation. That is, everybody's left Earth. We've done what we kind of are in the progress of doing. We've trashed Earth. It's no longer livable. So we are now going to a new planet and, exploring it and making it our own.
Yes.
For better or for worse. The theme. Does the theme really come through for you?
It does. Probably not quite as well as Terraforming Mars.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very solid. You understand absolutely what you're doing. You're exploring and covering this planet.
And I don't know what they could do to make it more thematic for me. Because and I've said this to some friends, this is my current Seven Wonders replacement.
Yeah.
This plays up to 6. It's got simultaneous action. So adding, when you're at 2 or 3 players, adding a 4th and a 5th does not add a whole lot more time.
No, because everyone puts their pieces down at the same time.
Yep.
Because once the active player has decided what pieces they want and they've spun the center Lazy Susan, what is that called anyway?
That's what it's called.
Is it called the Lazy
Yep.
Susan?
Yep.
Okay, whenever the active player has chosen the pieces that they want, everyone else simultaneously reaches out, gets whatever piece is assigned to them. Well, you have 2 to choose from. And everyone puts their pieces down at the same time, which helps so much over other games where you have to wait for the other players to complete their turn before you go. So it makes playing with 5 or 6 people, it doesn't drag the game out so long that you're ready for something else. So I give it extra points for that.
So, to your point about the Lazy Susan, they actually have a name. Their Lazy Susan is named Susan. It's an anagram, S.U.S.A.N. It stands for Simultaneous Unit Selection Axial Node.
Nice.
So
I knew it had a name.
It does have a name. So for theme, I'm at a solid 4. Yeah. The mechanics, the gameplay is where it's at for me, and I don't know how they can make it more thematic, but walking away from this, I'm not like, oh wow. Mm-hmm. You are absolutely right. Thematically, I think Terraforming Mars is just a little bit more for me. I even think something that's a little more abstracted, Wormholes, feels a little more thematic to me too. Yeah. And that could just be a me thing.
Right.
Theme, where are you at?
3.75.
Okay. And that brings us to it factor. How much are you just really wanting to play this game? For me, this is a 4.5. And I will preface that at 3 to 6. Yeah. 2-player game, I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's not the game I want to play just me and you.
There are definitely better 2-player games. But for large groups up to 6, yeah, absolutely.
4.25, you're right. We play so many 2-player games.
Yeah.
I mean, we're as we're recording this, we are finishing up July on gaming every day of the month of July.
Yes.
We have played Planet Unknown, but we played it at the game store with some friends. Mm-hmm. At home, we have not touched it.
No.
Because we will pick up something else for 2-player.
Right.
And that's not because I don't want to play the game.
Sure.
Call some people over. We had to clean up the house.
As do all humans.
Yeah. Busy house or busy life, not able to clean house is what that was. Yeah. So 4.25 on it factor. How much do you want to play this game, Andrea?
I'll give it a solid 4.0.
Yeah?
I do like that it's a larger... plays larger groups. I like that we all go at the same time. I really do enjoy playing it. I've never had a bad play of it, and we've played it many times now at pretty much every player count.
Yeah.
And usually at either a friend's house, like you said, for the first time was a birthday party, which was a good game because it played at 6, and or at our friendly neighborhood game store Meta. So it's definitely one for us to take out for game night, but not one that I would pull out for just 2 or 3 at home kind of a game. There are
not 2, 3, yes.
Yeah.
It plays quick enough.
Yeah, that's true.
For me, a 3-player game, this could be if you want to play one long game with friends, this is a game where I play 2 medium to shorter length games. Yeah. Because this plays in about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And then if you got friends over for dinner and some games, you could play 2, maybe 3 games if they're all about that length.
Yeah.
If we're going to have friends over to play Lorenzo il Magnifico and or Orleans, depending on how swiftly we can keep our turns, maybe we can play a second game, but maybe that might be the only game we're playing.
Right.
And if it was a Terraforming Mars or Ark Nova and we're playing with 3 players, that's the only game we're playing that night.
Yeah.
Which is not bad if that's what we picked.
Right.
So, presentation, Andrea gave it a 4.25, I was at a 4.0. Components, Andrea was at a 4.0, I was at a 4.5, but then Andrea talked me down to a 4.25, totally her fault. Gameplay, she was at a 4.25, I'm at a 4.5. Theme, she is at 3.75, I'm at a flat 4. And then the it factor, how much we want to play it. Andrea's at a 4, I'm at a 4.25. Which Andrea scores Planet Unknown at an 81. And I score Planet Unknown at an 84.
Very nice.
Those are solid games, and I firmly believe if you like simultaneous action games, if you're kind of burned on the 7 Wonders, which I still love 7 Wonders, I'll never get rid of out of our collection.
Yeah.
It, for right now, is a game that I really believe deserves to be in most gamers' collections, especially if you have a large collection of games that you like to have game days and have people over at the house, or you run a game group. You're at your friendly local game store. This is not necessarily a gateway game. It's the next step.
Yes, I agree.
But that was Planet Unknown, designed by Ryan Lambert and Adam Rayberg, published by Adam's Apple Games. Andrew's at an 81. I'm at an 84. Let's go on to the next segment. So the expansion 7, we're once again doing 7 games we like to teach, but we've replaced Catherine from Moon City Con with Ben from Moon City Con.
Yo, yo.
So...
Probably couldn't tell if you didn't say that. They would just think it was Catherine talking.
Yeah. So we're doing 7 again, and this time Andrea will start us off with 7, which is 14 on your list.
Right.
So, Andrea, what is the number 7 of the games you like to teach?
I like to teach Savannah Park.
Yeah.
Because, one, we've played it so many times, it's just a second nature. But speaking of nature, it's a very theme-oriented game where you're putting down tiles in the savanna, an African savanna. Each tile has a different animal or set of animals on it. And where you put them, you want to herd them together. You want all the elephants together. You want all the antelopes together. And whenever there's a fire, the only one animal will run away from a one fire. That makes sense, right? So the theme helps me explain it in a way that it makes sense to anyone who's playing it, whether they are a gamer or a newbie.
That makes sense.
Your number 7.
My number 7, you got to have a Bruno Cathala game on the list. So... And again, this is one of those games that I like to teach because I like to play it. And so, it's one that if nobody else is going to bring it out. So Cyclades is a worker placement war-style game with an interesting bidding mechanism to get your powers. And what you're going to be able to do that turn, you have to bid on a god. And so it's got this cool bidding and bumping bids and doing that. And then at its heart, it's kind of like just a simple area control. I said worker placement, but that's wrong. It's like a simple area control idea. But then it's got that wrinkle of there's all these special gods or special monsters that you can get on your side to change the rules. So instead of being able to just move your people through boats, maybe you get a griffin and you get to pick some of your people up from an island and drop them off. And there's an in-game condition that speeds the game along. I've never seen the game take too long, so it's great to teach it for that reason because the action selection is easy. Seeing what you have to do to win the game is easy, which is I find is one thing about teaching a game is like if you can easily go, here's how you win. You make 3 cities. How do you make cities? You do these 2 things in a row and then you make a city. Okay. From that point on, everything else becomes very easy to teach. So Cyclades is my number 7. One, just because I wanted to have a Bruno Cathala, and I might have another Bruno Cathala game on this list too.
What? Not you.
So that's my number 7.
We're finding out we like quite a bit of Bruno Cathala games as well. There's just that one I hate.
Which one?
Wonder,
Oh, the
on the boats.
Yep.
Yamatai,
which I like too. I think it's good.
And I've given it 4 and 5 tries. There's just games you just don't like.
It's true.
Number six. Number six for us, me specifically, is Star Realms. Before Star Realms, I hated deck builders. Wouldn't want to touch deck builder. And I tried so many of them. Like, these are all the same. This is just solitaire. And everybody just keeps on playing solitaire until one person wins. Great. Mm-hmm. Star Realms, you have your fleet of spaceships and you're attacking the other player. You are draining their life force. First one to drain the other life force wins. So whenever you're taking cards out of the card row, there is hate drafting involved. Because if you don't hate draft, they're going to grab that card and they're going to attack you with it. I love Star Realms. It's a very simple deck builder. It's A, B, C, D. A, action. B, buy. C, cleanup. D, draw your next hand. If you can't draw your next hand, shuffle the deck and create a new deck to draw your next hand. It is absolutely dead simple to teach. It is a very good intro to deck building. It is the only one I will intro people into deck building. But yes, that is number 6.
And then you know what's interesting about that is how easy that is to teach, and I agree. I like, especially like the mobile version of it's very good too. But I bought the Cthulhu Realms, reskin of that exact game by Darwin Castle, same designer, and it is one of the hardest games in the world to teach because they use these words to in place of simple actions. So Instead of saying discard a card, or from your tableau, it'll say abdicate. And it will be a symbol. The symbol, so it's got all this iconography. And then when you go to look it up, it's like the symbol says abdicate. Then you got to look at another place in the rule book to find out what abdicate means. It's like it's absolutely the opposite of Star Realms. It takes all the beautiful simplicity of it and makes it completely maddening. I guess
left it on a table at Geekway and walked away.
Yep.
And we got 4 tables away until Mike said, "You're really going to leave that?" And I said, "Yeah." And he went back and got it. He goes, "You're getting this back." And I never got it back.
Yeah. But yeah, it shouldn't be hard, but
no,
it is.
It shouldn't.
I don't know. So my number 6 is TAC. So I bring it up on every list we talk about probably because it's my favorite abstract game. It's by Patrick Rothfuss and the other guy that I can never remember, the actual game designer. But anyway, Patrick Rothfuss wrote that game into his King Killer Chronicles, and they decided to get together and make an actual abstract game. And it couldn't be simpler. It's the old 4 in a row / 5 in a row / 6 in a row of your color across the board, and you win. Okay, hey, that's easy. But the way that the Mancala aspect and the stacking of the tiles work, it just adds this infinite amount of possibilities and ways and strategies and setting up traps on the board and trying to make just draw the person's eye away, things like that. Couldn't be simpler, but they take this very basic set of just pieces that you've seen in every abstract game since the beginning of time, and they're like, how can we use these in a different way? And they did that by putting them up on their sides and stuff like that. Just taking things that you just don't think about, the flexibility that you don't usually have in an abstract game. You get that in this game. You're able to play. Each person can play in a different style. It's very easy to teach. It's one of those games where I teach it. 5 minutes, we play, I win the first game, and then I usually lose the rest of the night because I've, it's like they figured it out, and it's like, well, I'm not good at this game. I just like to play it.
Right.
So that's TAC.
Number 5, Andrea.
Azul. I like all the versions of Azul, from the original to the Queen's Garden, which when we got, we're like, oh, do we really need another version of Azul? It was a completely different game from the originals. So I like all of those. I like that the tiles feel nice in your hand. It's very tactile. When you put them on the board, it looks very pretty. It's easy to teach in that there's nothing really complicated going on. It's a complicated decision-making process to min-max the amount of points you're going to get, but teaching someone new who's never played a game, 1 tile goes here and there's 1 square. 3 tiles go here where there's 3 squares, and when you take them, they all have to match. It makes sense to the layman, I think, and that makes it easy to teach. And then once you've learned the game, then you can go on to making, whoa, if I'd have gotten, all of this color, I would have gotten this many bonus points. You can worry about that later. But the teacher of the first game is pretty simple.
So when you teach a game like Azul, because I think there's always like a light bulb moment when people play that game. where they don't really understand kind of the possibilities of the game until that time where somebody just really drafts to screw the other person at the last pick, and they have to get 7 broken tiles or whatever.
Right.
Then I think when you teach a game like that, do you teach those that hate drafting aspect, or you just let them figure that out on their own?
I don't because I don't generally, when I play it, I don't hate draft. I'm just trying to make the best board I can for myself. And then I'll let them figure that out on their own with other players. Any help along the way?
And she's usually soft, especially on newbies.
Yeah.
Where if something's really going to kill their board, she might take it and see if she can put it on her board. She might have gotten better points somewhere else, but at least she's getting some points and not killing them.
Yeah. Right. You're so nice, Andrea.
She is.
Well, I know what it's like to be the new person and playing a game for the first time and then just get decimated by like 50 points. And you're like, I should go home and sit in the bathtub.
Yeah, and it's one thing from somebody got more points on you than around, then you got hit for -8 points in that round.
Yeah. Instead of scoring anything, you get negative points. Yeah.
Then number 5.
All right, number 5 for me is Dixit. So I think it's super fun game to teach anybody, seasoned gamers, new gamers, doesn't matter. It doesn't work like any other board game I've ever. I mean, there's been things that have tried to reinvent the wheel on Dixit, but Dixit nailed it. I do not have the designer. I'm sure it's some French person. Libeloud is the publisher, but but it didn't see the designer on the box, so but I have so many expansions for that game. They don't even fit in the box anymore. It's just beautiful artwork. And the idea of playing a card down, looking at the image, or having a card in your hand, picking the one you want to do, the flexibility of being able to do any kind of clue you want. You can read a paragraph's worth of stuff. Yeah. Or you can say one grunt. And both are effective in their own ways, because the idea is you don't want to be too specific, but you want at least somebody to know. Now, it leads to a bunch of stuff that is interesting, and I don't like to tell people this when they play. I like them to figure it out. So say you play with a couple. Well, then you've got those inside jokes and inside things that are, inside baseball stuff where it's like, if I say this, and nobody else has a possibility of knowing what this is unless they can guess our twisted minds and go, they're probably talking about this weird card because I don't know exactly what they mean, but it's probably that. And I know they know it. And it's nothing better than when you can submarine that thing that you really don't know what they're talking about, but you know enough about the reason they're talking about it to know what card they're talking about. I don't know. I've never seen a game pull off that kind of abstract thinking like Dixit, and it's super fun. The scoring is wacky and everything, but it almost doesn't matter how you score. It's just about playing the game and being able to pull off that perfect one where only one person at the table knows exactly what you're talking about. Nobody else has a clue. I love that.
Number 4, for us, that would be on my end, is Viticulture. Catherine waxed poetic in our original episode on how much she liked teaching Viticulture. I also love teaching Viticulture. And I like teaching the base. I like teaching the Tuscany expansion. I like teaching the modules. I like teaching such a thematic Euro game. And this is kudos to Jamie Stegmaier for creating such a thematic game, because in your head you see your guys, you're putting them there to go take the actions. You're going to town to getting vines so we can then go to the farm and plant. So then, now that we have some wine, let's go give a tour. We don't have any wine. Yeah, but we need money, so go give a tour. But I absolutely love the game. And yes, seasoned players will kick the crap out of new players, but generally, the new players will see where they've gotten their points and be like, oh, the next time I play this, I'm going to change things. Which means they're already thinking about the next time they're going to play the game. Because there's a lot of times when people are just like, oh, that was a good time. But in Viticulture, even after people have gotten their butts kicked a little bit, most of them say the next time.
Absolutely. And because there's there is so many options as far as there's a big timing aspect in that game that it's very hard to get across. Save your stuff till the winter because you might want to use it before, but if you don't save that one worker back, and a newbie can do that, but they will see that within a few turns. They'll be like, oh yeah, I gotta wait. And yeah, you're right. you start realizing that in an early game, I probably should have planted more, and and you're like, I'll just try it again. It's like, it is one of those games, if it didn't take a couple hours to play, it'd be one that you would just play again. Most people would want to do that, but it's a little long on that. I think that's still probably his best design. It was his first game, which is amazing. Well, no, Euphoria was his first game, right? Or was it Viticulture and then Euphoria? Either way, I think by far still for me, it's still, I like a lot of Stegmaier games, but that's still to me probably his magnum opus,
Scythe is my favorite from him. Viticulture is right next. It's
I
like
go the other
1A,
two.
1B.
Yeah, I would go the other way.
It's not like 1-2.
Yeah.
One's significantly better. Ben, you're 4.
All right, my 4. Hey, another Stegmaier game, or Stonemaier game anyway, but not designed by Jamie. So it was, I think you had said in the original episode that you don't like teaching Wingspan.
I don't think I teach it well.
Okay, I think even since my first play of Wingspan, which I loved, right away. I mean, we went and made a video for it, so I really did get the video. I did get the rules down pretty good because we made a how to play video for it when it first came out, and it's just been one of those that just kind of clicked with me. Like every rule seemed to make sense. Now, I'll still tell you, sometimes I forget to activate your bird powers from the right to the left because that seems counterintuitive to me, and I think I've always taught it the wrong way. But other than that, you know what I mean? It's one of those games where to me it's like, hey, it makes total sense. You're going to just you're going to build a bird, or you're going to go get food, or you're going to, you just have these very basic actions, and it's like, and as the game progresses, you're going to see how those basic actions all work together, and you're going to slowly build your little engine. And it doesn't have to take a player that knows anything about the concept of engine building to see what happens in that game, how you just, slowly build up over time. And the more you play it, the more you realize the synergies between the different kinds of birds and stuff. But just as a base game, it's so beautiful. And people want to get these certain birds for specific reasons, but also, just because, getting a bunch of birds on your board always seems like a good idea. And putting a bunch of eggs out on your board. So the eggs draw people in. When people see that game on the table with the birdhouse, dice tower.
It's visually impressive.
Visually impressive. It draws you in, which is one of the hardest things about teaching a game. If I lay a game out, and even though this may be the best game ever, if it looks dry and there's nothing popping, then it's hard to get people to pay attention to even listen to what the rules are because there's nothing drawing them in. Mm-hmm. At least as Wingspan, you kind of want to know, hey, what is this? What are these different? How do I get these birds? What do I do with this? What are all these eggs? How am I going to get these eggs? So then you get to tell them all that, and then they get to do it. It's one of my favorites to teach. Now, again, it has its problems as far as like player count. It's not hard to teach to a bunch of people, but boy, you don't want to play with 5 people because by the 5th or 6th round, it's taking 10 minutes to get back to you every time. But
Asia has brought in the flock mechanic whenever you're playing 6 and 7.
See, I haven't messed with that. We played the 2-player version, but I haven't played it with.
We liked it.
I like that too. Yeah.
But I started reading a little bit on the flock rules, how multiple people do their things at the same time. It's got a little dial. These 2 people do their thing.
Oh, okay.
Then it rotates. These 2 people do their thing. You know what I mean?
Interesting. So you can take your simultaneous turns.
Yes,
that way you get all your triggers.
Going at once.
Okay. That could get confusing, but
it cuts you back, not quite, back down to a 3 or 4 player count time-wise.
Interesting. Yeah, that'd be worth trying. Yeah. Except I just have sworn off playing more than 4 people.
Yeah, and that's fine.
All right, that's me.
Andrea, your number 3?
One that Ben just talked about, Dixit. Mm-hmm. But my reason for liking teaching it is different from yours. Mine is because it's one of the games that we teach to people who are not gamers. I've got a 60-40 split on friends and family who don't play games and versus the 40% who do. And we still want to, if we have people over for dinner, it's our habit. Okay, dinner's over. Now what are we going to do? We're going to play a game.
You're going to play a game.
And a lot of them are very patient. They're like, okay, but nothing too hard, and Dixit is easy to explain, and it's something that you don't have any special mechanics that you have to have memorized to be able to play. So that's why I like teaching it, because it is so inclusive and easy to explain to the in-laws or to the cousin or, to those type of people who are like, after we're done, like, hey, that was kind of fun. That type of experience. So that's why I like it.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I love it. I think it gives that experience for new players as well as seasoned gamers. There's some people that are getting into the hobby now. It's such an older game. They may not have ever even tried Dixit. Yeah. You can get some people who are really into board games that are like, I've never tried Dixit. I don't really know what it is. And then you show them and they're like, well, that's different. I've still, out of all this new stuff I've been playing, never seen anything quite like that before.
Right.
because it's such an older game, we see it on the used shelf at our friendly local game store about once every other month.
Yep.
And I'm kind of sad that it pops up there, but I'm like, yeah, I can understand. Because
if you don't buy the expansions, you can play out the cards. That's the thing. Once you see the same cards over and over, that's why I just, every time there's an expansion for Dixit, I just get it. Because I love looking at the art. Like every new set has kind of its own art style, and I just love looking at that new stuff. How it's translated from old school, like, actual, on canvas paintings to now it's all this super high level digital art and stuff. And sometimes you miss the old ones, but it's like they just change it up each set.
Nice.
So, and you don't get sick of the game when you just kind of cycle out those old cards, and then after you don't see them for a while, next year throw those back, some of those old ones back in there, and you'll get different clues for them. Otherwise, you just start giving the same clues for the same cards, and then everybody knows.
Yeah.
So,
Number 2, Lords of Waterdeep. This one's mine.
I forgot about that one. I probably should have put that on.
I love Lords of Waterdeep. I love teaching it. So some of the new people that join our group are coming over from the RPG group. And, our 417Gamer group, there's quite a few people that play Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder and all that stuff. But there's not a whole lot of games that bridge that gap that are done well, except for Peter Lee and Rodney Thompson did a fantastic game in Lords of Waterdeep. It's one of the best intro to worker placements. It's one of the easiest worker placements. And for those that are coming in, there's so many nods to D&D. There's you're domesticating owlbears. The Xanthar pops in here and every now and again.
Skullduggery.
Councils of Skullport. Waterdeep Harbor is when all the shady things happen. Because of course it does.
I'm telling you, as well as your example, that is the game that bridged the gap for Lee and I when we were playing D&D and getting into board games. It was a very easy jump to go, well, let's just try this. All these themes.
Yeah.
And I might not have been able to get her to try worker placement. And guess what? That's now to this day probably still one of her favorite worker placement games.
Yeah.
It's such a fantastically simple system. And yes, if you're wanting to teach, I understand Stone Age has worked for a lot of people. But for me, Lords of Waterdeep is number 1. And then right after it, Coldwater Crown would be 2. But Lords of Waterdeep is 1. Ben, you're number 2.
My number 2 is another Bruno Cathala game, 5 Tribes.
Yeah.
So 5 Tribes, I think it did win the Spiel des Jahres. It was.
Was it a Kennerspiel?
Maybe Kennerspiel. Yeah. I mean, he won it with King Domino, and that may have been his first time, honestly, now that I'm thinking of it. But either way, it was up for a lot of awards when it came out. It really did hit pretty hard. And 5 Tribes takes the idea of something I apparently like, which is the Mancala aspect, and puts it in this big randomized board. And it kind of looks like a mess. When you look at the board, it's like this big mess of just colors and little badges and things. So whenever players see the board, I think they can be intimidated. But when you start explaining the actions and how it's very simple, just go pick up all the colors of one color of meeple and then move as far as you can while dropping one of those off. Do the action of where you end up. And you then extrapolate from that to try to get some of these gens that can give you special abilities. So when you do this, and then there's also a special ability of each color of meeple. And that's all right there on your little cheat sheet, so you can see that. And once you start realizing how that all works together, the game really just starts flowing. And people just, I've never had people get past the first turn and just not be like, all right, we're in it. We're playing this game. I've had it taught wrong to me before, which helped me to teach it, because there's a couple of confusing things. There's a few rules that at first glance seem like they mean this one thing, and then you realize, you might end up playing. You might end up playing half a game wrong, and then you got to go, we just have to play it like this for the rest of the game because we can't go back now. So that helped me to learn it from someone else and see those mistakes. But I've been able to teach this game many times over, and it's one of those that doesn't come out a lot, so I do end up teaching it to new people. But when I do play it every time, I'm like, man, it's such a good game. So 5 Tribes.
Nice.
Andrea, your number 1.
Cascadia. It's a beautiful game. The art's really, really good. It's a tile laying game. And it's different every time you play it because the scoring cards that you choose are different. I think Nemalia, though, I talked about in the first episode, is a scaled down version of Cascadia, almost in that.
They do look similar, at least in the way that they.
And I think it's easy to teach because you have the scoring cards laid out in front of you that say you want all of your salmon to be in a straight line, or you want all of your bears to be in pairs, or, all the hawks want to be solitary. Otherwise, they score no points. It helps me to be able to point to those and be like, remember, your hawks don't count for points if you put two together. So having those laid out is a big help. And it's fun because when people pick up the tiles, you have 4 to choose from. And it's fun to watch the introduction. No, that was the one I wanted or needed. So it's fun to watch people click onto, oh, that's what I need to do. So I really enjoy that game.
And I like the fact that the animals don't always score the same way every game. There's multiple of those scoring cards. So where it is easy to teach that first game, that second game, you're like, okay, now you get the basics, but now we're going to put out different cards, and they don't do what they used to do. So now I don't think about Hawks that way, because now Hawks might do something different.
Exactly. So it's a fun game, and I enjoy teaching it. I like seeing those aha moments on people's faces, and I like being able to, the way it's referenced and that the tiles are right there, the cards are right there. It's a much easier teach than you have to remember rules. Did
you say you think Nemalia is scaled down from Cascadia? Because Cascadia is very simple, so Nemalia is even simpler, you think?
Depending on what scoring cards come out.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
If we're playing with people who are newbies, we will specifically choose easier scoring cards than shuffling them and drawing them like you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Because some of them are a little more complicated.
Okay.
But the easy scoring cards, I'd say yes.
Because they have leaves in the corner of the scoring cards.
Mm-hmm.
1 is super simple, 2 is a little bit harder, and 3 a lot more thinky to try and get strategies on scoring those cards.
Yeah, so you can kind of tailor it to whoever you want to play with. That's cool. I like that.
Number 1, Ben.
Number 1 for me. Okay, and this is an interesting one for me, I think, because when I first played it, it was taught badly to me, I feel like, and I did not like the game, and I went like a couple of years without playing it. But that is Isle of Skye by Alexander Pfister. It was the first Pfister game that I was ever introduced to, and again, like I said, I was kind of turned off to him, at that point. But after revisiting it and playing it being taught right, I absolutely love this game. I love the way that I love the theme. First of all, I love the Scottish theme. The artwork is Clemens Franz, so it's awesome. It's got this very classic board game, Euro game feel with this new twist that Pfister's very good at doing. He's good at taking these old school trappings of your Euro games and flipping them on their heads. And in this particular game, it's probably his most simple game. You're just evaluating your goods that you're going to sell yourself. So you get to put your money behind a screen and tell how much you want to charge for something, then that's revealed. And then everybody bids on these or pays for these tiles depending on how much you're asking for them. So you get to kind of control the economy. And when you have a tile that you want or specifically someone else wants, you're able to adjust that, that cost basis because of that. You either want to overcharge because you really want it and you don't think anybody will pay for it, or you want to overcharge because they want it and they'll pay for it, and things like that. And there's tons of different ways, and similar to Cascadia, there's always different scoring options. They're randomized at the beginning of the game. So in the first round, you're going to be scoring this in this game, and then in the second round, you'll be scoring this and this, and then the third round, you score this, this, and this. And that's always different every game. So that brings that no two games ever feel the same. You're never building out your tiles in the same way, because it's specific scoring things are going to care about having roads connected or having the most locks or having the biggest, and they don't always score every game. So one game you might care about putting your locks together, and the next game, who cares? That doesn't mean anything. So, but I find that it's very simple to teach, and everybody gets into it pretty quickly. Like everybody's like, really aggressively, costing their stuff. And the more rich you get, the more you can do that. So, you can kind of increase those things, or you can just try to hoard all your money, and just buy cheap everything. So I really like Isle of Skye.
Nice.
All right. Before we get out of here, I did the same thing with Catherine. Instead of honorable mention, maybe a game in your collection that you used to love to teach that maybe not so much anymore, or a game in your collection that you'll teach it so you can play it, but you really don't like teaching it.
Yeah, I have a lot of those. I have a lot of those. There's so many games that they are such a steep teach that it's like, so I could say first off, right off the bat, the one that pops in mind is Vindication. I love that game, and every game I've had of it has been a story and everybody's enjoyed it. Everybody always asks to play it again, but it's always so long between plays that it not only it necessitates me to freshen up on those. Then I know I'm going in, and nobody else remembers how to play it either. So we have the vaguest of ideas of how to play it, but there's so many rules in that game, and even when you know them, it's one of those games where I can say I'm spilling out so many rules out of my mouth. There's no good way to do it in less than an hour to where someone's going to go, oh, you didn't say that. 3 turns in, I'm like, yeah, I did. And somebody else will go, yeah, he did. Well, I didn't hear it. I would have played everything differently if I'd have known that. There's a million rules in this game. So it's a game that I love to play, but that is hindered by, it's very hard to teach. And it doesn't get played very often because I'm just so not into that right now,
And one game I'm looking at it right now that I didn't mention during Catherine is a Game of Thrones.
That's another one too.
I feel more. It's super aggressive, and it's also one of those where people can get butthurt pretty easy because of the alliances and they'll shift and you backstab each other. Which for stories,
that's what makes it so good, though.
I know, but it's those little details on tiebreakers, on when you move up the tracks, when you readjust the tracks, when you flip over. The raid markers come up first, and then this comes up, and then that. And it's so, you need to teach it correctly, because if anything's taught out of order because a mess up or just a flub, or you taught it correctly, but then one round you activated it wrong. Now everybody's mad because you activated it right for 3 rounds. This round, who are you trying to screw over?
Why did you do that?
Yeah, why did you do that? It was a mistake. Mm-hmm. But everybody knows what that is now.
Yeah, yep. That's one of those. I think I used to think it was more complicated than it is. I've been playing the mobile a lot, so I think the rules are kind of ingrained in me. But I haven't got the physical game back out since then. So even though I know it's in my brain, when I start putting these pieces out and making sure I set everything up right, maybe I'll start getting overwhelmed again. But I feel like I have a better grasp of that game now than when I first played it. But it's just such a good game. But yeah, it's tough to just get people willing to play that game because they know how cutthroat it can be. It's interesting. I really like it. It's a good one.
Andrea, any more that you thought of?
No. I just in general, I don't. I still rely on you so much for the game teach. I think that eventually I'll get more like you are. But I still struggle with complicating rulebook instructions. The more complicated that rulebook is, I might understand playing the game, but I don't feel comfortable teaching.
Right.
So
a lot of rule books overdo it. They
really
make it seem more complex than it actually is when you actually start playing.
But all right, Ben, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Not only do you help us run Moon City Con, are you a founder, but you also have you still have your Instagram.
Yes.
Which is at
NSFWP podcast. Yeah, I think.
Not safe for worker placement podcast.
Yes. And we still have our defunct podcasts, not safe for work
placement.
placement.
The old episodes.
Yep.
So if you like Ben's voice, go back and listen to Ben and Leandra talk to each other about board games and stuffs.
We threatened to bring it back one day. So
you threatened to?
Yeah.
Who are you threatening?
She's threatening me that we better do it. So.
Okay, understood. All right, but until next time, keep gaming in the 417. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
The 417 Gamer podcast is recorded and produced by Rick Bagwell and Andrea Smith. We'd like to thank Ben Ennes for stopping by and talking about his favorite games to teach. We'll have links to Ben's Instagram and the podcast him and his wife used to do and are threatening to bring back. The music we use, Kind, Gentle, Beautiful Person, and Making Up for Lost Time, was created by Origami Replica. For links to the music and our show notes, head on over to the Facebook page at facebook.com/Hobby Gaming Network. You can follow the show on Facebook and on Instagram at Hobby Gaming Network. Until next time, keep gaming in the 417.